Hi, I'm Varuna Singh, Business Management Specialist with the GSA Center for Charge Card Management. I'm the core for the GSA pool contract. I'm also a purchase card holder. This is my first year presenting Purchase Management Essentials. I have been training with Shauna Weatherly, the core for the GSA SmartPay 3 Master Contract. Shauna is in the room and will be able to assist with answering questions I may not know the answers to. I just want to thank you in advance for your patience as I'm still learning. Learning objectives. So here we have a quick rundown of the learning objectives that we'll cover in our session today. By the time we're done, you should be able to list the benefits of the GSA SmartPay program, list GSA SmartPay 3 purchase business line products and services, apply the micro purchase thresholds correctly, apply purchase card to purchases, orders, and payments, understand purchase card program rules, understand roles and responsibilities, apply fraud and preventative measures, and locate resources for program coordinators. Just a few quick notes. Everything is included in the speaker's notes, which will be part of the materials available for download with this presentation. Also, anything said does not override any of your agency's policies or processes related to your charge card program. Lastly, I'd like to mention that the Purchase Management Essentials is a prerequisite for the Advanced Purchase Management course. Some of the benefits for GSA SmartPay. The GSA SmartPay program was established in 1998 and is the world's largest government charge card program, servicing more than 560 federal agencies, organizations, and Native American tribal governments. Prior to GSA SmartPay payment solutions, the federal government used traditional paper-based processes, such as purchase order for small dollar purchases that are under the micro purchase threshold. In many cases, traditional paper-based processing techniques cost more to process than the amount of the transaction itself. The GSA SmartPay purchase card is one of the 4 business lines offerings under the GSA SmartPay 3 contract, with travel, integrated, and fleet being the others. There are a number of benefits to using GSA SmartPay. These can include safety and transparency, improves financial controls and tools to access spend data for increased transparency, safety features including EMV to make your card secure, electronic access to data via the EAS and other data mining tools, providing online access to accurate, comprehensive transaction detail to help mitigate fraud, waste, and abuse, refunds, which are issued based on both volume and speed of pay, cost savings. The estimated administrative savings for the purchase card alone is $1.7 billion per year, or $70 per transaction when used in place of a written purchase order. GSA SmartPay is also integrated with GSA Advantage. All GSA scheduled contracts include a contract term that the card can be used as an ordering and payment mechanism under the micro purchase threshold, and for many contracts over the micro purchase threshold. GSA SmartPay is also automatic point of sale discount recognition from federal strategic sourcing initiative vendors, such as those for office supplies. And also, GSA SmartPay is one of the best-in-class solutions as designated by the Office of Management and Budget. Fiscal year 20 purchase card spend. In fiscal year 20, purchase card spend totaled $21.8 billion, 76% of the total overall GSA SmartPay program spend. This graph on the left of the screen shows the trend for purchase card spend from month to month for fiscal year 20. The table on the top right shows there was a decrease in spend from fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20 of about 0.4%, and the number of purchase transactions decreased by 5.5%. The last line shows there was an increase in cards by 3.3%. The table at the bottom right shows the top 5 agencies by spend. The Department of Veterans Affairs has the highest spend in the purchase card, since that is a payment mechanism which the VA uses under its prime vendor program, and it is over 55% of total spend in the purchase card business line, government-wide. Also, Department of Defense purchase is the second highest spend, followed by Department of Justice, Health and Human Services, and Department of Homeland Security. GSA SmartPay purchase business line Tier 1, mandatory products and services. All of the business lines under the GSA SmartPay 3 contract include these Tier 1 products and services shown in the left-hand column. The Tier 1 products and services that are specific to the purchase business line are shown in the right-hand column. Tier 1 products and services are available at no cost to your agency, simply by using the GSA SmartPay purchase card. The only exceptions are the 2 items shown in italics and indicated with an asterisk. Non-interchange-based government-to-government transactions and convenience checks, which do come at a fee to the government. The products and services available to your agency task order will be communicated by your Level 1 AOPC. Fees for the 2 CLINs annotated are established in the agency's task order. During our training today, we will primarily discuss carded products, which is the typical mechanism for making purchases under the GSA SmartPay Purchase Business Line. GSA SmartPay 3 Purchase Business Line Tier 2, Optional Products and Services. All business lines under GSA SmartPay 3 contract include the parent categories of Tier 2 products and services shown in the left-hand column. However, since Tier 2 products and services are value-added or optional, they may or may not be included in each bank's GSA SmartPay 3 master contract and will vary from bank to bank. Banks have the option to offer bank or brand-specific proprietary payment solutions and other services under Tier 2. Those Tier 2 products and service categories specific to the purchase business line are optional ATM access, shown in the right-hand column. These products and services are typically enhancements to the purchase card program that agencies may choose to order for added program functionality, either at the AOPC level or the cardholder level. Tier 2 products and services also typically come at a cost to your agency. If you have questions about what products or services were included in your agency's task order, contact your Level 1 AOPC. What is a micro purchase? The Federal Acquisition Regulation, also known as the FAR, Subpart 13.201 states, the government-wide commercial purchase card shall be preferred method to purchase and to pay for micro purchases. Easy enough, right? That simple guidance gets a little more complicated when we break it apart. What falls under a micro purchase? Let's start with, what is a micro purchase? A micro purchase is defined by FAR, Subpart 2.101, as an acquisition of supplies or services, the aggregate amount of which does not exceed the micro purchase threshold. As we will see in our next slide, however, we have had some variation in this over the years. Evolution of the micro purchase threshold. If you've been following the changes to the micro purchase threshold in FAR Subpoint 2.101 and in other legislation, like the fiscal year 2017 and 2018 National Defense Authorization Acts, the NDAA, you know that this threshold has changed a lot over the past 4 to 5 fiscal years. Going back to the beginning, the Federal Acquisition Streamlining Act established the category of micro purchases in FAR and the initial $2,500 micro purchase threshold. 6 years later, in 2010, the micro purchase threshold was raised from $2,500 to $3,000, and again 5 years later, in fiscal year 2015, the micro purchase threshold was raised from $3,000 to $3,500. These increases were as part of the FAR Council's review of all acquisition thresholds, done every 5 years to consider adjustments for inflation. The FY 2018 NDAA Section 806 included an increase of the micro purchase threshold for civilian agencies from $3,500 to $10,000. The NDAA Section 821, signed into law August 13, 2018, doubled the Department of Defense threshold to $10,000, on par with civilian agencies. Micro purchase threshold exception for construction. Construction is defined by FAR Subpoint 2.0101 as construction, alteration, or repair of buildings, structures, or other real property, and includes improvements of all types. Examples of construction includes building a structure, repairing a hole in a parking lot or street, replacing a leaking roof or window, etc. Also, some tasks which appear to be services are actually construction, depending on the volume or the work being performed. The micro purchase threshold for construction is $2,000 and is set by wage rate requirements, formerly known as the Davis-Bacon Act. Over the $2,000 threshold, several other acts kick in, which require specific contract clauses, terms, and conditions, such as the Construction Wage Rate Requirement Statute, Contract Work Hours and Safety Standard Statute, and the Copeland Anti-Kickback Act. Any construction activities totaling over $2,000 in aggregate costs must be referred to your procurement office for purchase. MICO purchase threshold exception for services. FAR subpoint 37.101 defines services as directly engaging the time and effort of a contractor whose primary purpose is to perform a task rather than furnish an item. A service contract may be either non-personal or a personal contract. It can also cover services performed by either professional or non-professional personnel, whether on an individual or an organizational basis. The table shows the difference between the types of services. Example of services include repair, servicing equipment, packing, crating storage, advisory, assistance service, janitorial, housekeeping, food services, laundry, snow, garbage removal, examples like that, operation, maintenance of facilities, landscaping, communications, transportation, even data collection. The micro-purchase threshold for services is $2,500. Examples of professional services are where a preponderance of the work is performed by a profession recognized as such based on a prolonged course of study. For example, professional services include architect engineering services, chemists, biologists, accountants, any type of lawyer, medical services. A written determination that the service to be provided is professional in nature should be made, preferably with the assistance of the contracting officer or legal counsel, and added to the purchase card transaction filed. The micro-purchase threshold for professional services is $10,000. Micro-purchase threshold for supplies. FAR Subpart 2.101 defines supplies as property except land or interest in land. Supplies are tangible items. These include things like office supplies, computers, computer peripherals, cleaning supplies, equipment, machines, tools, signage, accessories, products for official government use. The micro-purchase threshold for the purchase of supplies is $10,000. FAR subpoint 8.405-1 outlines the ordering procedures for supplies at or below the micro-purchase threshold when using GSA schedule contracts. Ordering activities are not required to solicit a specific number of scheduled contractors, but should attempt to distribute orders among qualified contractors. Depending on the type and value of the property purchase, your purchase may be considered government property and subject to government control requirements, such as the need to barcode, tag, own, or track property via inventory and hand receipt procedures. Cardholders should be aware of any such requirements for their agencies, and they should purchase these types of equipment and supplies for property. Micro-purchase threshold exception for contingency operations. In 1998, the Stafford Act provided for an increase in the micro-purchase threshold for use under contingency operations. These include the acquisition of supplies or services that, as determined by the head of an agency, are to support a contingency operation or facilitate defense against or recovery from cyber, nuclear, biological, chemical attack, international disaster, or in a major disaster or emergency. Excluded from these is the construction subject to the wage rate requirements we discussed earlier on the slide for exceptions for construction. The micro-purchase threshold for both civilian and military agencies is $20,000 in the case of a contract awarded to performance made inside the United States, and $35,000 in the case of any contract awarded to or performance done outside of the United States. Purchases using this authority must have a clear and direct relationship to the support of a contingency operation. Typically, it's the head of an agency or their delegated authority, such as a procurement executive, who will define the contingency operation in writing and provide parameters for the use of the purchase card. A major disaster means any natural catastrophe, which in the determination of the president causes damage of sufficient severity and magnitude to warrant major disaster assistance under the Stafford Act. As we have seen, emergencies may include things such as COVID-19 pandemic response or other declared emergencies by the President of the United States. Methods of use, FAR 13.301. The purchase card can be used in 3 different ways, depending on the value of the transaction and the authority of the cardholder. Procurement mechanism is when the card is used as the procurement tool to acquire and pay for goods and services by means other than use of an existing contract. Ordering mechanism is used to order and pay for goods and services under an existing contract itself. And payment mechanism is when the card is used only to pay for goods and services acquired by other means. Uses under and over the micropurchase threshold. At or below the micropurchase threshold for supplies, services, and construction, as we previously discussed, cardholders may use their cards as procurement ordering and payment mechanism within their single and monthly transaction limits. For those actions valued over the micropurchase threshold for supplies, services, and construction, only cardholders who are warranted contracting officers or appointed as ordering officers or payment officials may use their card under applicable laws and policies. So contracting officers and ordering officers may place task or delivery orders against existing contracts if use of the purchase card as a purchasing mechanism is authorized in the basic contract terms for ordering mechanisms. A contracting and payment official may make payments on purchase orders, task delivery orders, or contracts where the card is accepted as a form of payment for payment mechanism. Remember, both the contracting officer, ordering officer, or payment official authority limits and card have limits and cardholder single purchase limits that apply. For example, if a contracting officer holds a $10 million warrant and has a purchase card with a $250,000 single purchase limit, they may only place an order or make a payment using their card up to that $250,000 single purchase limit. The cardholder is held to the lower of the 2 limits. Contracting officers must comply with all federal procurement laws and agency regulations and policies when using the card. Cardholders who are also contracting officers or ordering officers are not exempt from normal procurement processes simply because they hold the purchase card. This includes the need to issue a formal written purchase order, contract requirements for publicizing purchases, acquisition planning, and complying with other FAR, agency, and local policies. Payment officials. Some agencies have individuals that hold payment cards for the sole purpose of making payment under established contracts. The dollar values for those persons should be delegated by the contracting officer or even the chief financial officer, and the single purchase limit for those cardholders may be higher than the typical cardholder in accordance with your agency's policies. Some micro-purchase myth busting. Before we go further, let's just bust a few myths about micro-purchases. We get a lot of emails asking us if various FAR requirements apply to micro-purchases. So here are a few of the most commonly asked questions that we get and the information that busts the myth to these that apply. The do not pay list applicability. The do not pay list is a list of entities or people who should not be paid maintained by the Bureau of the Fiscal Service to assist agencies in the prevention of improper payment. Due to the low level of correlation between this list and merchants from the federal government typically making the micro-purchase, there is no need to check the do not pay list prior to making micro-purchases. System for award manageability, applicability. In accordance with FAR Subpart 4.1102, contractors or merchants from which purchases are made under the micro-purchase threshold that use a purchase card as both a procurement and payment mechanism are exempt for a requirement to be registered in SAM. Corporations regarding delinquent tax liability or felony conviction. FAR has a provision, 52.209-11, that requires offerors to certify that they are a corporation that does not have a delinquent tax liability or felony conviction, making them ineligible to receive an expenditure of federal funds. Since micropurchases do not use any formal solicitation procedures for procurement on the open market, it is not applicable to micropurchases. Written quotes. There is no requirement to obtain a written quote for a micropurchase. It really can and should be as simple as calling a vendor, explaining what you need or providing a part number, possibly providing a simple statement of work or specification and asking for a price over the phone. Agencies have different ways of documenting that process, but written quotes from a vendor are not required. And competition. FAR.6 competition requirements tells us that the competition does not apply to acquisition of products and services when using FAR Part 13, under which micropurchases do fall. However, cardholders should rotate orders with vendors who can provide the products or services within the time frame required. Required sources. When trying to determine a source for the purchase, many considerations must be made. Federal Acquisition Regulations Subpart 8.002 outlines mandatory sources for supplies and services in their descending order of priority, which are listed here on the table. This is what is sometimes called the order of priority and should be used unless otherwise provided by law or head of the contracting activity, which is usually your senior procurement executive. Supplies. For example, if you're asked to make a purchase of an executive desk chair, what steps do you take to determine from which source you should purchase the chair? First, look in the existing inventory of the agency to see if there's a chair that can meet your needs. If there is not a chair available within the agency, then look to excess inventories of other agencies for a suitable chair to meet your needs. If a chair meeting your needs is not found through the use of excess inventories, then look to Unicore to meet your needs. And if Unicore cannot meet your needs or delivery requirements, then check the government's procurement list managed by AbilityOne for products from participating nonprofit agencies. If a chair meeting your needs is not found through AbilityOne participating nonprofit agencies, then look to purchase from wholesale supply sources such as GSA, DLA, or VA stock programs. You may purchase a chair from a commercial source only after consideration has been made to these previous sources. For services, similar steps are taken. See the right-hand column of the table. AbilityOne is the first source, then Federal Prison Industries or commercial sources. Exceptions for things like utility services, printing and/or printing services, leasing vehicles, strategic and critical materials from inventories exceeding Defense National Stockpile requirements can be found in FAR Subpart 8.003 for additional guidance. Services to be performed by Unicore do not disclose information considered classified or that provides maps, drawings, or other information about the layout of government facilities. Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act requires that federal departments or agencies develop, procure, maintain, or use information and communication technology, ICT, that allow employees with disabilities to have access and use of information and data that is comparable when access to information and data accessed by employees. ICT is electronic and information technology, as well as telecommunications products, interconnected voice over IP protocol products, and includes things like computers, information kiosks, telecommunications equipment, software, websites, electronic documents, and other examples. Section 508 also requires that individuals with disabilities who are members of the public have access to and use of information and data that is comparable to that provided to the public without disabilities. This is particularly important if you are purchasing an item or service that will reach the public. When making a micropurchase of ICT, make sure that the available accessibility information applies to the version of the product to be purchased. The Buy Accessible Wizard is a web-based application that makes it easier to buy products and services that comply with federal requirements for Section 508. It helps quickly and easily identify the Section 508 standards and requirements and includes a 508 standards applicability checklist for use. Sustainability and environmental considerations. Agencies must also consider sustainable and environmentally friendly products and services at the micropurchase level. Executive Order 13693 requires agencies to purchase products and services meeting statutory requirements for recycled content, energy, and water-efficient products and bio-based products identified by the United States EPA. It also requires meeting non-federal specifications, standards, and labels recommended by the EPA or selected by their agency. In addition, agencies must purchase environmentally sustainable electronic products and products that use minimal amounts of power when in standby mode. The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act requires the purchase of EPA-designated recycled content products. EPA maintains a list of designated recycled content products and recommends the percentage of recycled content that the products must contain. Agencies can refer to the Green Procurement compilation for a complete list of these products. The EPA's recommendations for products and other information. How convenient are convenience checks? Convenience checks are a payment tool intended only for when merchants that do not accept the GSA SmartPay purchase card. Convenience checks should be used as a payment method of last resort. Convenience checks don't offer you the same kinds of consumer protections that other GSA SmartPay solutions do. If your agency determines a need for convenience checks, your contractor bank will provide a supply of paper checks to the designated account holder drawn on the account holder's purchase account. The checks will be processed as they are presented for payment. Due to the increased potential of fraud and abuse, specialized training on convenience check is required prior to being authorized to write checks. Do not use convenience checks if the vendor otherwise accepts the purchase card as a form of payment, to pay for modifications to work under another method of acquisition, to reimburse an employee, for cash advances, salary payments, or any transactional process through the payroll system, for travel-related transportation tickets while an employee is on travel, or for any other restricted purchase as determined by an agency policy. Checks should be secured at all times to ensure against physical theft. Checks are negotiable instruments and are able to be stored in a locked container. Checks should be accounted for appropriately to prevent loss, theft, or potential forgery. The AOPC is responsible for the implementation of the appropriate internal controls and oversight of convenience check activity. Recurring payments. The general rule of thumb is that when you have a recurring payment, you may use the purchase card to make those payments if the aggregate total of the payments over a 12-month period does not exceed the single transaction limit of the cardholder. Again, payment officials who are delegated higher authority will be subject to the policies of the agency in that case. So let's discuss an example. Alice P. cardholder has a single transaction limit of $10,000. Alice is asked to make 15 equal monthly payments totaling $12,000 in an order. Can Alice make the recurring payments using her purchase card? The answer is yes. Dividing $12,000 by 15 months, we get a monthly payment of $800. Taking $800, multiplying it by 12 months is $9,600, less than Alice's single transaction limit of $10,000. So Alice can make the payments with her purchase card. Do not split payments to a single vendor between cardholders to circumvent the 12-month recurring payment guidelines. What is a split purchase? Splitting purchases is a prohibited practice. Splitting a purchase is breaking a single transaction down to two or more smaller transactions to circumvent the cardholder's single transaction limit or to stay under the micro-purchase threshold. Cardholders and approving officials that participate in split purchases may have their cards revoked and face disciplinary action. The slide outlines an example of a split purchase. Peggy C. cardholder has a single transaction limit of $10,000. She needs to purchase a flatbed trailer for a strategic customer with delivery required within 48 hours. The cost is $12,000. Peggy calls vendor Trailers R Us. They have one trailer in stock and they can deliver it tomorrow. Peggy is crunched for time, so she asks the vendor to charge her card for no more than $10,000 and $2,000 tomorrow to complete the purchase. Is this a split purchase? Yes. What should Peggy cardholder have done instead? And Shauna shared a story with me, a real-life example of purchase of a trailer. And in this case, the project manager stated that she was trying to do the right thing and help the strategic customer. And project manager ended up suspended for 14 days for improper use of the card. And the customer was reprimanded for their involvement by submitting separate budget requests. So the bottom line point is, don't do split purchases, because this was an example of one. Tax exemption and surcharges. States have sovereign rights to assess taxes on the purchase of goods and services, but do not have the authority to assess taxes for purchases made directly by the federal government or any agent of the federal government. Cardholders are considered agents, and the cards are a form of instrumentality. Merchants and vendors act as tax collection point, and as such, determine when to assess taxes and when not to. However, given this information, GSA does not have the authority to mandate tax exemption status for federal government transactions. All purchase card accounts fall into the category of centrally billed accounts for which the customer agency is directly billed and liable for making the payment. There are 13 states that still require a form to be completed for such exemptions. Also, there are laws may change very suddenly, and merchants and vendors rely on the point-of-sale employee who may not have the updated information. If a merchant is in doubt, cardholders are asked to let them ask the merchant to contact the applicable state taxation authority for clarification prior to completing the purchase. Some states have other taxes which the government is subject to pay. New Mexico imposes a gross receipt tax rather than a sales tax, and Hawaii has a general excise tax, which is levied on businesses selling tangible personal property or services, not at the point of sale. Illinois has a tax on merchants and vendors, which can be passed on to the cardholder as an indirect tax, and Arizona has taxes on merchants, not on consumers directly. Purchases through Amazon.com LLC or subsidiaries are automatically subject to tax in 21 states, regardless of the form of payment. However, the government is eligible for exemption in those states through the Amazon Tax Exemption Program. A surcharge is a fee added to the cost of purchase assessed by a retailer to compensate the retailer of the customer's use of a charge or credit card. Chances are we've all experienced this at some point. Several states do not allow or limit surcharges, and Visa MasterCard have strict guidelines for the assessment of surcharges. Generally, it is capped at 4% of the total transaction amount. Third-party payment processors. Smart Bulletin 23 covers the use of third-party payment processors when making purchases with the purchase card. Third-party payment processors are non-bank entities that provide payment processing services to the merchant. These merchant transactions primarily include credit card payments, but also cover automated clearinghouse, ACH debits. This includes entities like Amazon, Apple Pay, PayPal, Flagship, iPayment, Square, Samsung Pay, and others. Since 2012 and 2015, the industry in this area has exploded. Now, it is not uncommon for merchants, particularly smaller merchants, to utilize third-party payment processors for their banking and payment receipts processing. For many merchants, third-party payment processors are quickly becoming their only method of conducting the financial portion of their business, and they are now widely used. There are no government-wide policies or procedures outlining the use of third-party payment processors. Several agencies have developed internal policies. These policies range from the complete restriction of third-party payment processors to less restrictive policies, which do allow for transactions to be made if a workaround cannot be identified. Cardholders should not establish accounts or agree to commercial terms and conditions of third-party payment processors without consent from their legal counsel or other proper authority. Consideration regarding account establishment requirements, account verification limits, dispute processes, and possible lack of level 1, 2, and 3 transactional data should be considered when deciding to use third-party payment processors. When a third-party payment service is used, the cardholder forfeits all dispute rights guaranteed under the GSA SmartPay contract. While certain dispute rights accrue by using the third-party payment service, these rights are not as favorable to the government as those provided in GSA's contract. Lastly, merchant names are often truncated by the third-party payment processor, making reporting, reconciliation, and oversight a little more difficult as part of the management of the card program. Roles and responsibilities. The LPC plays a key role in the management and success of the purchase card program at the agency organization level. The AOPC is responsible primarily as the focal point for answering all questions related to the charge card program at the agency level, and they have several other responsibilities. This can include intake of charge card applications and issuance or destruction of cards, suspending and processing cancellations of charge card accounts, reviewing reports on a regular basis, monitoring for misuse, abuse, and fraud, and arranging for and conducting internal training on use of the card. An approving official also plays a key role in preventing fraud, abuse, and misuse. They ensure approval of all purchases such that they are necessary for official use, and they should assist cardholders in the resolution of questionable charges, make sure monthly invoices are certified, and resulting in compliance and reviews. Account holders are the first line of defense when it comes to the proper use of the purchase card. Account holders have a specific set of responsibilities and should be followed in the SmartPay program, purchase card program. Account holders should secure their cards and maintain records for all transactions. They should use the card only for government purchases. They should understand agency policy and procedure. They should immediately report a lost or stolen card. And they should perform timely reconciliations and dispute transactions in a timely manner. Purchase cards are only used for expenses that fall within the purchase card solution. You're not supposed to use this purchase card for a travel or fleet expense. For example, just do not use a purchase card to pay for personal travel of someone who might have left their travel card at home, or don't use a purchase card to pay for tires or fleet vehicles. I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that I'm a purchase card holder, and I definitely try to adhere to these. Not definitely, I try to adhere to all of these and make sure that I communicate with my AO as well on a monthly basis on all purchase card transactions. Disputing transactions. Of primary importance is the need to understand the government has the right to dispute transactions. There are various reasons for disputing transactions. In most cases, the account holder should contact the merchant directly to resolve any disputed charges and request a credit from the merchant. Sales tax and shipping charges are not disputable items and must be resolved between the account holder and the merchant. If the account holder and merchant are unable to resolve the dispute, the account holder can dispute a charge by visiting the contractor's bank website, contacting their customer service number, or going through the EAS system. All disputes must be reported to the bank within 90 days from the date to the transaction was processed. The bank will suspend the charge and immediately provide temporary credit to the account while investigating the disputed charge by contacting the merchant and requesting response. If the merchant does not respond, the disputed charge will be resolved in favor of the account holder, and the merchant will be charged back for the particular goods or service. If the disputed charge isn't resolved in favor of the merchant, a letter will be sent to the account holder explaining that the charge will appear on their next billing statement. Merchants with a high number of disputes should be watched to determine if they are acting improperly. This is also another personal example I can relate to, because in the past year I did have a dispute that I needed to claim, and it was in favor of me, the account holder, and the charge was reversed. Categories of misuse and fraud. So one of the key roles of all three key players in the purchase card program is to avoid misuse by the cardholder and identify fraud from any sort of source. There are three categories of fraud relating to the purchase card use. So you can have cardholder misuse and fraud, where this is misuse and fraud committed by the cardholder themselves. They can include exceeding purchase limits, making purchases for personal consumption. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's unintentional. That's why I do not like to keep my purchase card in my wallet, just in case I inadvertently use it. I always keep it locked in a drawer safely, so there are no mistakes made on the purchase card. Non-card holder fraud is when a third party obtains account information, which is what had happened to me, obtained information about the account and uses that information to make purchases with a counterfeit purchase card, or it's just taken over as identity theft. If a card was never received by a cardholder, that needs to be reported so that it's aware. Merchant fraud involves fraud committed by them on the merchant end, and this can happen. It involves either with or without the knowledge of the consent of the cardholder. False or transactions, the merchant charges for supplies and services that were never provided, or mischarges, the merchant can charge for a different amount than the actual transaction. For example, cardholder made a transaction for $20, but then the merchant processed it for $200. Just that one decimal makes a difference. Bribes and gratuities, the merchant offers bribes to the cardholder to engage in fraudulent activity. AOPCs and approving officials can also be guilty of fraud if they are participating in any of these activities with the cardholder and or the merchant. And if convicted, a person can be subject to fines or maybe even imprisonment for no more than 5 years. What would you do? Here's an example of just a scenario, and just to kind of discuss, what should have done, what would you do? Let's talk through the scenario and see what you'd do. So Jack P. cardholder uses his GSA SmartPay purchase card to make an official purchase of $1,000 from Easy Gates to fix the back fence at the government compound. A few days later, Jack brags to his coworkers that his brother, who owns Easy Gates, did a great job fixing the fence. He points to the picnic tables on the grounds, and he says he also purchased those from Easy Gates. One of Jack's coworkers brings this information to your attention, and what should you do? The first thing is to collect information, talk to Jack, and get the facts surrounding the decisions to use Easy Gates. Did Jack get other quotes? Things could have been completed above board. What if Jack's location is remote and the only other local vendor that can fix the fence within 50 miles is his brother's business? Is the purchase acceptable then? If you have any questions about the validity of the transaction, you may need to notify the approving official and supervisor. You may also want to consider suspending cardholders using their card temporarily if an investigation is done, and deactivating the account maybe even if there's a pattern of questionable activity or breaking agency program rules. And you may even be required to report this activity to another approving official or agency IG, just depending on what your agency's policies are. Maybe even contacting human resources if warranted. What if this was simply a situation where Jack should have known better, such as creating an appearance of a conflict of interest by purchasing these services and products from his brother's company? The scenario is just a good reminder of why regularly scheduled refresher training every 1 to 2 years is useful. It reminds a cardholder of the rules in general and those specific to your agency. If you suspend or deactivate a card, you may want to require that they complete training before reactivating, or require that refresher training for all employees who break agency's rules as a repeat offense. This is a real-life scenario at a small remote office where the cardholder's brother owned the only woodworking shop in the nearest small town, and it was cheaper to purchase from him than any other vendors 50 miles away. The AOPC, after talking to the cardholder and completing a review of the purchase log and the supporting documents for the transaction, notified the AO and requested a meeting with both the AO and the cardholder. The cardholder was advised that the current process created a conflict of interest, and the AO and the AOPC made arrangements for future purchases to be made by a different cardholder at a different site. Any future purchases from Easy Gates would require a signed approval by the approving official, and a cardholder would seek at least one additional quote for the work and advise the AO on their findings before completing the transaction. This therefore removed the appearance of a conflict and added parameters for future transactions with Easy Gates. Just to kind of show you some of the steps to reiterate. Some of the preventative measures mentioned in GSA Smart Bulletin 21. There are several steps that can be taken in the management of the purchase card program to mitigate potential misuse and fraud through the establishment of preventative measures. A few such measures are program evaluations. AOPCs should perform an evaluation of local operating procedures and the use of the other cards against agency policies and rules for use of the cards. A best practice might be to use a standardized form to provide additional information to your AOPC on questionable transactions. Separation of duties. This is making sure that the duties of the cardholder or the approving officials and the AOPCs do not overlap. A best practice is when appointing an AOPC or an AO, consider factors such as grade level, position, training, span of control, etc. Random record reviews. AOs and cardholders should be able to provide documentation of purchases, such as written authorizations, receipts, invoices, upon request, even at a random interval. Reports. There are a variety of reports that can be used to review transaction history. The Guide for Management of the Purchase Card talks to each of these reports in detail and explains how they can be best used to determine if transactions are being made with suspicious merchants or high spending patterns. A best practice would be to place an ad hoc report in a shared folder for an AOPC to access them. This helps develop consistent use of data across the agency organization. Credit limits. Limits can be set to restrict single purchase and daily, weekly, monthly expenditures by cardholders. Realistic but not excessive limits will deter misuse without jeopardizing mission needs. Record keeping requirements. AOPCs should become familiar with referencing references related to record retention, and their purchase program, these that are listed here. These include all transaction-related documents such as documentation pertaining to the pre-approval of purchase card transactions, if and when such pre-approval is required, and other types of documentation that's related. Invoicing, email approvals, etc. The GSA SmartPay 3 master contract states, in addition to record retention requirements, the contractor shall serve as the document repository agent for all GSA SmartPay transactions. The contractor shall maintain electronic records of all transactions for a period of 6 years after the final contract payment. Final contract payment is defined as the final payment for the particular charge under each agency's task order. It also goes on to say, contractors shall provide online access to data through the EIS to GSA and the agency for 6 years after the occurrence of each transaction. Longer transaction record retention and retrieval requirements than those mentioned above may be necessary and will be specified by an agency in the task order level requirements. Online training. The Center for Charge Card Management offers free online purchase card training for cardholders and AOPCs at the website shown on this slide. The new Program Coordinators tab is where AOPCs can find all the resources they need to manage their program. If you click on Purchase from the drop-down menu for information specific to the purchase card line, you'll be able to see this. The Account Holders and Approving Officials tab has a similar drop-down menu and provides purchase-specific information for their use as well. Directly above Program Coordinators, you see Visit Online Training. In the GSA SmartPay training portal, cardholders can set up profiles, register for training, and manage online training courses and certificates. AOPCs can leverage this training for use of their required agency training, and Level 1 agencies can pull reports for employees who have completed the training for their records. Learning objectives. I hope we have had some success. Just a quick rundown of the objectives we covered in our session, listing the GSA SmartPay 3 specific business line, purchase line products, services applying micro purchase thresholds correctly, applying the purchase card to purchases, orders, and payments, understanding purchase card program rules, understanding roles and responsibilities, applying fraud and preventative measures, locating resources for program coordinators. Hopefully we have covered each of these thoroughly and given you enough information, ideas, or even just provided a refresher on the card program. If you have any questions, please wait on the line and we will start a live question and answer via chat to answer any immediate questions. You're also welcome to email us, gsa_smartpay@gsa.gov. Our phone number is listed on the slide, 703-605-2808. I just want to thank you for your time and interest in this course, and I hope you learned something new today. Thank you.